when I knew you were successful, Hasan, was when I saw you in the NBA All-Star game. That was, I just switched it on and I was like, I'll be honest, I got a little upset. I was very jealous.
Wait, do you play?
No, I play video games. I don't play basketball. But you were good. I'm Kumail Nanjiani. I'm a comedian, writer, actor, producer person.
I'm Lulu Wang. I am a writer and director.
I'm Jon M. I'm a director and professional potty trainer for my little 3-year-old.
Hey guys, I'm Ally Maki. I'm an actress and also the founder of Asian American Girl Club.
Hey, I'm Hasan Minhaj. I'm a comedian, and we have to do potty training very soon.
I'm Audrey, news anchor and reporter for Variety. And welcome to #Represent Success Stories, our roundtable in honor of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. All right, so I wanted to center this conversation because it is Heritage Month, but also I wanted it to be around the theme of success. What that has meant to you in your careers, what that has looked like to you, but also some of the differing and sometimes conflicting definitions of that, especially among AAPIs. So my first question is, when did you first feel successful in your career?
Well, for me, I know my first big splurge, I bought a laundry machine, washer dryer. It was great because I never had that before. The only issue is what I thought was success at the time, because I was straight out of college. I was 22 years old. I got attached pay or play to a musical Bye Bye Birdie at Sony. And so I was like, all right, I made it. I'm going to splurge on this thing. And 5 years later, I still hadn't made my first movie. So what I thought was success, I hadn't quite done that yet. So Hollywood can trick you in those ways when you believe you've made it and you haven't quite yet. And eventually, when I did direct my first movie, Step Out to the Streets, I got myself a mattress.
Oh, you thought it was a mattress?
That's all I got was a mattress. And it was very uneven.
What about you, Kumail? When's the first time you felt successful?
It's hard because I really don't feel successful, because I think, as Jon was saying, Hollywood success is not permanent, right? You're only as good as like the last thing. So I still feel that pressure all the time. Like, soon as you do, especially right now, as soon as you make something, people are like, all right, what's next? What's the next thing you're going to do? I feel like as soon as you do something, it disappears immediately. So you really cannot be comfortable at all. It's kind of job to job, this business. But I will say I felt a little more successful when I started reading parts or auditioning for parts that were not like stereotypical brown guy parts, which I know my first few years of auditioning, it's all I saw were very, very stereotypical parts. And so when I started sort of getting opportunities that were outside of that felt good.
What kinds of parts were you reading for?
So there's a really, really big movie actually that I auditioned for, and I was a taxi driver. And the director was like, hey, could you like play up the accent a little bit? And I was like, I'm sorry, I won't. And then the guy felt really bad. He felt really embarrassed. And I was like, no, it's fine. I'm just not going to do it. If that's what you want, I'm not your guy. And then that movie was hugely successful. No, I don't regret it.
The ladies, can you weigh in? When was the first time you felt successful?
Well, I felt a little bit successful today because I got a message from someone that said, an old friend who said, hey, you're in the crossword puzzle today. I think for me, fundamentally, similar to Kumail, the first time I actually felt successful was on a project where they sent me the script to do it. And I said, I love the book. I love this project, but the scripts are just not there. And so I have to pass unless I can, really redo the script. And they said, yeah, you can do your version. And I said, no, I don't want to fix something that has already been built, like I need to build it from the ground up. And so thank you, but no, thank you. And then they came back and said, we'll start over. Like, we've been developing for a year, but we want you to do it so you can just take the property and, we'll just start from scratch. Because in the past, I've always been pretty much like take having to debate, like, do I just take this job because I need the money? And you're always having to be grateful. And it was the first time where I actually could say no. And then the studio came around and gave me everything that I needed to do what would be my best work.
I think probably the first time was when I was, starting to be able to pay my bills through comedy. Like, I was able to quit, working a full-time day job per se, and then shift over to comedy. And then the first time I really felt like maybe I can do this as a career was probably when I was hired at The Daily Show.
For more, we're joined by senior religious correspondent Hasan Minhaj. Hasan, thank you for joining us.
The Daily Show being this, loved and revered New York institution, and getting that cosign from Jon, he made a lot of things really easy for me. I was able to get past the Comedy Cellar and just get through all these hurdles that I didn't think would be possible, and it just opened up my career. So
Can I say when I knew you were successful, Hasan, was when I saw you in the NBA All-Star game.
Hasan Minhaj. Oh, Hasan! Who's a foul?
I'll be honest, I got a little upset. I was very jealous.
Wait, do you play?
No, I play video games. I don't play basketball. But you were good.
I had such a chip on my shoulder. And actually, Kumail, you're actually right, man. Like, that meant so much to me. Having tearaways that you can tear away, being able to tech into the game.
No, I saw the eye of the tiger. You were like, you were in it to win it.
Yeah, everybody was like, you really want this. And I was like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, man. It was you and Quavo out there.
Yeah.
So, Ally, when did you first feel successful?
I think it's when I ended up booking the show Wrecked that I was on for a few years.
I don't have my dry shampoo. I will light these pirates on fire, okay?
Okay, baby.
Usually with Asian roles, you go all the way to the bottom. And so this role was kind of closer to the top of the breakdown. So I was like, there's no way they're going to go for this. Booking that, like, kind of busted my whole world wide open of if I could play this role, what other kinds of roles could I play? And I'd kind of grown up in the industry. I moved here when I was 14. So, my whole life was basically like, you're either have an accent or you're this like over-sexualized ninja chick. And there wasn't really an in-between. So when those roles started becoming more and more that I could be this like all-American girl, I could just be a girl, that felt very successful for me.
It sounds like then success is kind of tied to the ability to say no.
It's sort of a catch-22. I have a lot of friends who are indie filmmakers who are going through this, where they can't say no. They're being offered these choices. None of those choices maybe provide the platform for them to have full creative control. But at some point, you also say, I have to get going. I have to make my first feature. I have to make something.
I said yes to a lot of movies, a lot of sequels. My first 7-8 movies, studio movies. I felt very lucky to be there. I felt very like, oh, they want to hire me, I'm in, and I'll figure it out. I knew how to make a movie, but I wasn't like an artist yet. I'd spent years and years to learn how to, I guess, say no, but mostly to feel confident that I wasn't lucky to be here anymore, that I actually earned the right to be here. And that I remember the time when, after Now You See Me Too, which I loved and worked with some of the best actors, but I definitely felt like creatively sort of stuck for myself. And I remember putting everything aside and saying, I don't want to read anything. I got to figure out for myself what I want to do. And I want to do something that scares me. And that's how we found Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, which I signed on at the same time, actually.
The world spins around while I'm frozen to my seat.
When you're doing a big studio movie like that, what is the pressure you face? Like, what is that like? I'm doing G.I. Joe.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressures. Well, G.I. Joe is very particular because you have a toy company that is making, millions and millions of dollars off of toys. So you got to respect that. And that's a history. Then you've got the original makers of G.I. Joe who have a very specific idea. There's the ninja side and there's like the military side. And then you have The Rock and you have Bruce Willis, who all are like clashing like this. So not in a personal way, but like, they all have ideas. And then my parents are like, when's the movie coming out? When is it gonna be in theaters? When are you gonna be in World Journal? Because they don't think anything's real until it's in the Chinese newspaper. I basically was like, this is a lot. And I don't know how you actually deal with it other than I had to just ignore it and just make a movie. But I think I'm used to it. I'm one of 5 kids. So I grew up in a restaurant, a crazy Chinese restaurant. So I'm used to the chaos. and I'm used to, I don't know, having it all go to shit and then figuring it out after. So
you're saying that making a big studio movie is a lot like growing up in a Chinese restaurant?
It is, exactly. It's basically a pirate ship that you've got to get to the next place, and whatever it takes. After doing all these movies that, the Justin Bieber documentary, which was also chaos, and
I love it, by the way. I love that documentary.
Thank you. You find that no matter what happens, as your confidence grows, that you will figure it out.
What about your parents and your family? Like, do they think you're successful?
My parents never, ever ask me about my career, but when I go to their house, it's all like articles of me up on the wall. And they'll ask my wife, Emily, about it, but they will never bring it up to me. Still, it's still like that.
Are your parents into show business? Like, do they like Hollywood?
Oh, they love, my dad is a big movie and TV fan, and they're like huge into pop culture. Like my mom knows like celebrity gossip, like people who've broken up and stuff. She's like, hey, so what happened with these two? I'm like, I don't know, Mom. It's none of my business. I don't know them.
Does she track you guys? Does she think of you and Emily as a celebrity couple? And does she like see you guys as part of that world?
No, we were out once. We were at a mall a while ago, and then someone came and like got a selfie with me, and she was like, why did that guy want a selfie with you? And I was like, because I'm in stuff that he likes. And she laughed so hard. She was like tears running down her face. Like she kept laughing about it for days. She's like, someone wanted a selfie with you? Oh, that's hilarious.
So what was the reaction when you went viral with your abs?
Yeah.
Only time they've said vocally that they're proud of me. Only time. It's the only time. My dad got socks with my like shirtless like body on them. They literally, like, I had aunts texting me, we're so proud of you. You've worked so hard.
When you became Hrithik Roshan, do you feel like you made it?
No, man. No.
Was getting ripped worth it?
Yes. But the hard thing is, it's not like a video game where you just like hit save and then it's done. It's every day. You have to keep doing it. What have I gotten myself into?
Has anyone else reached Kumail level of parental approval, shirtless socks level approval from their families?
I feel very lucky. My parents have always been super, super supportive. I'm fourth generation Japanese American, so I think, our family was so Americanized. And I think I reached a certain point where once I started to kind of use my voice and speak out, it was very uncomfortable for my whole family. I think because of the kind of Nisei code of silence, and after the internment camps, it was like everyone felt like they needed to truly assimilate and be so American. But now that I feel like I've kind of like just continued to speak out, and now I feel they're just so proud of that, which is awesome that I can kind of like change their opinions on that. So yeah, now they're there all the way.
And I was gonna say, I used to tell my parents like, oh, I'm going in for this pitch. I'm going into this thing. And then so they would call me right after and be like, so how'd the pitch go? When are they gonna tell you? And a week later, like, so they haven't called you yet? What's going on? And so this like, it happened over and over. I had to learn my lesson, like not to tell them anything that was happening in my life anymore until a movie is like literally about to come out. But I do think, of course, when you do Crazy Rich Asians and you are in the Asian newspapers and all that stuff, and we had a junket at the restaurant where the press came there, and my mom got all my awards from middle school and high school and put them on the tables on display for these reporters. For Crazy Rich Asians, they were pretty proud but more proud of themselves because they really believe they have a pulse on the Asian community in the world. And so they believe that they sell more tickets for our movie than anybody.
My dad would always ask, like when I wanted to make films and I moved to LA, he would always ask, are you Hollywood yet? And so I was like, well, what does that mean? And I think it goes to this idea of assimilation, right? There's like an us and then there's a them. And then it's like have you joined them yet? Have you become part of Hollywood? And, my dad watches like action movies like Die Hard and things like that. So when I started making The Farewell, a movie about our family, they were like, oh, okay, you're going to go the other direction of Hollywood. but that's nice. That's cute, you know? And my dad was like, why would anybody want to see this? So I think there was that discrepancy of what Hollywood is and then what I was doing. And then when they saw those two things come together, I think that was really mind-boggling.
What's wrong, Dad? Please tell me. Your dad is dying.
Oh, my dad, when he read the script for the first time, I gave it to him to make sure it felt authentic. And he was like, it's a little too authentic. I thought you would make it more interesting. Like, why would anybody want to? And at this point, I already had investors and financiers, and he just couldn't understand. He was like, are you sure you want to turn this in? Because they might, like, you know, the financiers might back out after reading this.
Lulu, you sent your dad a full PDF?
I did, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. Sounds terrifying.
I know. He got PDF. You sent it to dad. He did the whole.
Wow. Well, because I needed their help translating also, both my parents, because the Chinese translation was not, you know, it just wasn't authentic. It wasn't what I was trying to say. And you know, it's a movie about them. I wanted them to make sure I wasn't being biased and making myself look really good and making everyone else like look really bad. But I wasn't expecting him to be like, this is so boring.
He's like, heard it, lived it.
Did you watch the movie? Like, did you watch it in the theaters with your parents?
Yeah, and so that was they read the script and then they never saw a cut of the film. Because once it was in the can, I'm like, there's nothing they can do, and they're just gonna be negative, and I don't need that. So the first time they saw the movie was at Sundance at the Echo Theater with like 1,300 other people.
What was his reaction when he saw it?
Somebody in the audience during the Q&A, you know, because in the beginning when I introed the film, I said my parents are in the audience, they're seeing it for the first time. And then during the Q&A, somebody just yelled out, "So Mom and Dad, what'd you think?" And the entire theater went dead silent. And my dad was pretty good. And like, could hear that and just burst into laugh.
Wow.
Good is like A+ in like Asian American. You know?
So when you were growing up, like, who was successful to you? What did that look like to you?
So this is 2004. It's my freshman year in college. I'm walking past Holiday Cinema in Davis. I went to UC Davis, and there's a movie poster. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. I don't know if you guys remember it. It was half of John Cho's face and half of Penn's face. Mm-hmm. There's White Castle in the middle. And I remember getting tickets to see it with a friend. And I don't know if you guys felt this as like young creatives. I remember watching the movie and then being like, oh, they did it. They did it. It's done. Like, that's all the representation we're going to see. Like John Cho, Cal beat me to it. He's the funny, bassy guy.
Do you happen to know how to get to the White Castle?
Yeah.
I didn't realize, it's so funny, like 16 years later, I didn't even realize it was just starting. It hadn't even begun. That was one of many movies to come.
You know, you bring up an interesting point, because it was the first time I'd seen in mainstream, like American pop cultural entertainment, a brown guy who didn't fit any of the stereotypes. He was a pothead. I had never seen that. Mm-hmm. But I think that like goofy comedy did a lot more than people give it credit for.
So you think this is just about the burgers, huh? It's about far more than that.
It's just surreal for me, even 16 years later, to see Lulu, your movie, or John, your movie. I remember I saw both of those movies in the theater. And I remember even during Crazy Rich Asians, there's parts that are in like different parts of Southeast Asia, right? Malaysia, Singapore, all these like these nuances. Nobody is familiar with our sort of sectarian beefs. For a film to have that type of nuance, to show the different types of Asians there are in our community, I just didn't think that was possible. And it was so cool to see. And I'm looking around the audience and I'm like, oh, they get it. It was like surreal to me.
I feel glorious, got a chance to stop.
I definitely, even making that movie, realized so much I didn't know before. I mean, even just meeting all the British Asians and the Australian Asians and being like, oh, everybody is very different, and they actually have different ideas of.
Ronnie's in the film. He's Chinese, Malay. Like, these sub nuances. Like, Kumail, you know that in our community, there's these like sub groups within groups. Like, you're like, how will that translate?
There's all these like regional rivalries, and the food is different, and like we have our own version of like Polish jokes, you know. But then when we're represented here, it all gets flattened into one thing, right? Like Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, Bangladesh, it all gets squished into one. And that's what I liked about your films, as Hasan was saying, was that you guys sort of trusted the audience to pick up on that stuff.
The young family, they're old money rich. They had money when they left China in the 1800s.
What you guys do, comedy is like the biggest weapon out there because it is powerful. I remember watching Ronnie for the first time, and it was that report he did in Chinatown for that Waters World thing.
Is it the year of the dragon? Rabbit? No, it's actually the year of go yourself.
It was so fucking ballsy, and he was so cool about it, and he had none of the baggage that I felt like I had on the subject. When you have humor, and then you can also make fun of yourself and ourselves, and we're in that power. It is a very powerful message, and it seems silly and fun watching you guys talk and do your stand-up and do your shows. But actually, it seeps into you. It gives you so much confidence. That confidence is absolutely contagious, which is probably not the right thing to say right now. But yes.
My uncle always says, Hasan, look, you can either make money or make a difference. You can't do both.
I really want to highlight Jon because Jon is such an OG trailblazer. And I feel like the coolest thing about you, Jon, is that you made everyone feel like we were all part of your success. And I felt like that you do that with every project you do. And I just think it's so inspirational. For Crazy Rich Asians, we could have felt like, oh, you know, I wish we could all be constants. But instead, I felt like we were all just rooting for the movie as a whole. Like you have this way of bringing everyone together through social media and building this community. And so I think that's really,
I was going to be very elitist about it, but then everyone was wanted to be a part. So when you're Asian, you do pay attention to the other Asian comedians, filmmakers, writers. You just keep an eye because you're just like fascinated, like, oh, how are they going to do it? What are they going to bring? Good or bad? Like you're just sort of very aware. And so when we were casting Crazy Rich Asians, I had already this huge list of people that I thought were so freaking talented. And so we all knew the secret before the world knew the secret. It was just like getting them together. So it makes me so happy to see Awkwafina do Lulu, your movie, of course, and kill it. I remember her talking about it while she was on set with us. So to see that we have this huge dynamic of filmmakers and talent out there that have been ready, are ready, and just need the opportunity I think that's why we're such an explosive moment right now. Also, The Big Sick was like, oh my God, you can have a movie that is funny, charming, and has such a huge message. It's so much bigger than even the movie itself.
Can I ask you something? Something that has never made sense to me. Why did you bring me here if you wanted me to not have an American life? We come here, but we pretend like we're still back there? That's so stupid.
Like, it really changed our movie. That made us be like, all right, we gotta step this shit up. Like we gotta like do it right.
Well, you did it. You stepped this shit up.
So my last question is, what does success look like for AAPIs in the industry moving forward?
I think we just, hopefully, it's great. You know, I mean, look at this panel. Everyone here is doing so much interesting stuff. I just think we need more voices, and we just need more representatives from all our different communities doing stuff, you know, because otherwise there's so much pressure on any one story to represent a whole group of people, and that's just impossible. That's never going to happen. So I think we need, obviously, on-screen representation is important, but I think writing, directing, those things are very, very important because we just need more people telling their stories. If someone says like, oh, you know, that hit Asian movie, I want people to be like, which one, you know?
I think in the past, it can often be that somebody does, like Ang Lee does their small personal project that is ethnic or, you know, represents their family or whatever, where they come from. But then the sign of success is that they're able to assimilate. They're able to then go on to do studio movies that may or may not have anything to do with that personal, you know, story that they broke out with. And so what's exciting now is that there is so much more crossover. There is ways to go bigger and still integrate these elements, these nuances, and it doesn't have to be one or the other.
To me, it's seeing what is the next generation. Like I look at these young, even YouTubers who make feature stuff on their own now. It's like, it's so exciting. They again have even less baggage. And so that confidence is going to make it's going to not just change what we see, but actual cinema itself.
I remember before Crazy Rich Asians came out, I was so nervous. I was like, I hope this movie does well, because if it doesn't, it's gonna be like, well, they're like, well, I guess people don't want to see Asian people in Hollywood movies, you know? So it's so unfair. I'm glad that, you know, Lulu and Jon, that your movies were so successful, but it's so unfair that, you know, the pressure that was on those movies was so intense.
For what it's worth, Jon, I was a believer. As soon as you had the ab shot,
I'm gonna check the tweets. I'm gonna check the tweets to make sure you were
the ab shot in the trailer. I was like, we're on.
It was such a phenomenon. You guys had like, you know, it was one of those things where every weekend the numbers wouldn't go down, and it was just so exciting. Just because selfishly, I knew that it was going to mean more opportunities for us.
Yeah, and this is what I learned from that experience of, oh my gosh, is it going to work or not? I had to get over that when we were making the movie. And I think the thing that helped me get over it was thinking bad movies get forgotten. Good movies will get remembered. So for me, I was like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, nobody will ever remember this. So it doesn't matter.
Wait, so Jon, you had the confidence to be like, if this tanks, I won't walk into the next room with that stench on me?
I mean, I had already gone through it with this movie called Jem and the Holograms. And I got torn a new one. And plus, all my movies, I feel like they always get ripped on in you know, from Step Up 2 to Step Up 3 to Justin Bieber. Like, they all get shit on. And so I was sort of built to withstand those things. And I had to find other ways of satisfying my own why I'm making this movie. It was why it was hard to actually like accept its success, because I had already decided in my own life that I wasn't going to depend on the critics, and I wasn't going to depend on the box office. I was just going to make the thing, and I was going to focus on my next thing. Only recently am I able to actually like sort of recognize it, but I still can't enjoy it because I already made a decision in my life not to let that part give me satisfaction, I guess.
Wow, that sounds very bleak, Jon.
So just expect failure.
I mean, maybe Jon is onto something, you know?
Fail fast. It wasn't until I saw this poster image of John Cho starring in all these different movies, kept saying like, yeah, that would be he could totally do that. It makes sense. I've made enough money for these studios that I could actually get away with one. I could actually convince them to do one. And what is that thing that I want to do? And that's what sort of took me on my journey to find what was that one that I could push through no matter what. So,
what is the big pushback? So I don't understand the movie business as well as you guys do. You guys have all directed movies, written movies, been in movies. Is the big thing capital or distribution? Where is the kind of big, this is the iceberg, this is the thing that it's really hard to get around?
From my very limited perspective, there are people here who are a lot more experienced than me. I think it's people trying to guess what people want to see rather than making what they think is good. And I feel like we're in an industry where kind of nobody knows what they're doing, so they're trying their best to guess what people might want to see when really, and then that's what happens, right? You could see like suddenly there's a hit movie that was unexpected. Now you see like 10 copies of that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, what it is. Rather than making something that you can be proud of, people are trying to guess what audiences want, which is hard because there's no way to know what audiences want. All you can know is what you want and what you want to see.
So when you're doing the big stick, right? Did you feel it in your gut the way you feel it when you're like, when you had a great set? Or do you know what I mean? Where you're like, this feels right, this feels honest, versus some of the other movies you did?
It's different because with those other movies, it's not really my vision, right? It's not, I don't fully understand. So doing the Marvel movie was an amazing experience. I truly had the best time. And I was in the hands of Chloe Zhao, who's an amazing, amazing filmmaker. I didn't see the movie that she saw, but I trusted her. And I was like, I am in your hands, take me wherever. And I know it's going to be good.
For your files, your X-Files, that's your favorite show, huh? The
truth is out there.
With The Big Sick, that was our movie, that was our vision. So the whole time we were making it, we knew that we would like it. We just didn't know if anybody else would like it. But that's really all you could do, is you're the only audience that kind of matter when you're making something, I think.
The difficulty is if they say, oh, well, we don't have any Asian faces that have enough star power to justify a movie this size. And you say, well, there's no maybe Asian Americans with that kind of star power because you've never made a movie that put them in a lead position that allowed them to build their star power, you know? And so somebody, and thank God, Jon, that you did that, because there aren't that many people in the position that you were in who have the ability to say, let me use the clout that I've built and the credit that I've built in the studios to get one for us, you know? And unfortunately, that's why the pressure is there, because when it does well, then all of those stars suddenly become bankable names.
You gonna roll up and be like, bok, bok, bitch. Okay, maybe like not as aggressive.
Yeah, in a way, your movie is kind of patient zero for a lot of other projects. You took all these people who had not gotten a shot to be in a big movie. They're all so talented, and then they can go off, pair off with other people and spread the opportunity around.
I think for me, success moving forward is really fully breaking that scarcity mindset. I think as an actor and someone who grew up in this industry, it's so ingrained in me that there's only one girl that can be, it, and there's only one Asian in a project. And I think that kind of really affected my whole self-worth and self-confidence. And, I'm in my 30s now, and I'm just discovering, my self-worth and what roles I can really kind of take on. So I think the moment I can start to break that kind of scarcity mindset and really collaborate, and that's the whole impetus behind Asian Man Girl Club, was like to be able to really unite and collaborate and not see each other as enemies or that we're in competition with each other, but that we really are going to be stronger together. So much of that, the audition process really started to blend into my real life of feeling like I'm just the sidekick, or I'm not important, my story's not important. And I started to really feel like, oh, well, I have nothing to tell because it's totally worthless. So these kind of stories, I feel, really just empower so many people, and definitely the next generation.
Our community is big enough to fill up a football stadium, but we also all know each other.
This is going to sound kind of dark, but I think it's actually quite empowering when you actually internalize it, and it can be quite liberating. So the showrunner and co-creator of Patriot Act is one of my really close friends, Prashant Venkataramanujam. I just think about me like this kid whose family's from Aligarh, and he's this South Indian kid who grew up in Chicago. And I tell him this all the time. I'm like, they're not looking for us. Like, they're not looking for Hasan Minhaj or Prashant Venkataramanujam. So we got to make this on our own. Even though that sentence is like, it can be a negative thing, it's actually quite empowering, because then we just have to make all the swings ourselves. I told a story on The Moth, which became Homecoming King, which opened up a lot of doors for me and made Netflix really interested in seeing Patriot Act. But to be honest, like, we just brought in that immigrant hustle mentality. Me and Prashant, we put up the bag ourselves. We shot the proof of concept. We showed it to Netflix, and we came in the same way our parents came in. If you're not going to let us in through the door, we're coming in through the window, we're coming through the back. We're just going to make it happen, because ain't nobody looking for Prashant Venkataramanujam, but I'm gonna look out for him, and the only way I really think we're gonna make it is to make choices that where we have agency. We're not asking, we're just doing it. We're playing offense. And that to me is the choice that I would rather operate from. I'm not waiting for like a casting notice or anything like that. And that's just me speaking from experience.
When Muslim refugees try to come in for safety, he just turns into a nightclub bouncer. He's like, oh, sorry, fellas, we hit our cap on Muslims.
Earlier, Jon, you were saying something about carving paths, and I got this image of sort of, we're like on this mountain that's completely like an island that's completely brand new, and there are no existing paths, and then a few people carve out a couple paths, and then you maybe walk that path and carve out a trail from there, and then you carve out another trail. And so I think that's what the future is like. It's like this island that has a few paths and a few trails, but you want to get narrower paths, and you want to be able to go higher, and you want to go in every direction, down to the lake, down to the river. There's no one way to do it, and we don't always have to walk the same exact path, but that these paths lead to newer paths.
好多了，好多了，好多了，再来点气儿。
I have the easiest job here. I'm a director. I just gather all the most talented people. And so when I see you guys, you're craftsmen. you have studied your craft, you have molded it, you have trained, you have gone up in front of audiences and failed and won and all those things. And for me, like, that is what everyone who feels powerless, like, the thing you can do is make your craft better. They cannot deny better craftsmanship. And so when we were casting, it was very clear that everyone had worked on their craft. So everyone out there who feels they don't know how to get in, look at these people. They did it because they just kept getting better with or without permission to do it. And then they attracted the people to come to them, not try to get a job getting into something.
That was a master class.
I know.
I charge $19.99 a month for that. You can go to my Instagram Live now, and I'll continue.
This was such a great conversation. I'm glad to get all of you in this room.
Hey, you have an intruder, Lulu. Lock your door.
Look at how he thinks if he walks that way, nobody will see him.
Yeah, it's like if he doesn't look at us, then we can't look at him.
Thank you all so much for doing this. Didn't realize how influential John Cho was to everybody in their career.
He's the connector.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You know, he used to work hard at my gym too. He's a very handsome man.
He really is.
Yeah, sure.